Okay, here we go. Alright, so very simply I'm going to open up Illustrator here, which I have. Just hit New. It doesn't really matter what size. I like to put my logos at a 5 by 5 inch um, palette. Call it Doc Martin, so I'll just rename that. Oh, there's a nice big space here for you to do that. Down here in color mode, I'll just keep it at CMYK and then hit create. There's my panel. First thing, Command R just to show my rulers here, and then Command K, and that'll open up my preferences. So every time I open a new document, it's always Command R or Control R on the Windows machine for the rulers, and then Command K or Control K for the Windows machine for the preferences. Under preferences, I'll make sure that under general I have my inches selected, and everything else looks fine. So it looks like it defaulted just fine. And then I'll look at my keyboard increments here. So this is a 1/16. Actually, it's less than 1/16. It's it's 1/32, I think, of an inch. So then I'll hit OK. All right, so now I will kind of drag this over, and I'm really literally just going to drag and drop. So let's say I found this JPEG logo online. I want to use it for my project. So I'll just drag that over. I just dropped it into the window. And you can see that by hitting Command Y, Command Y shows your invisibles in Illustrator. So if you remember last time when we showed the invisibles of the vector art, we saw points and paths all around our logo artwork. In this case, since this is a JPEG, it's a placed raster art file. Okay, so when you remember, raster art is pixel-based artwork. So if I zoom in here and I see this edge, you see how it's kind of pixelated on the edge. It's raster based art, and that's also the reason why when I hover over it, you can see a big giant X over it, and when I show my invisibles, it's just a big picture box. Essentially, it's a placed raster art file. Can't really do anything with a raster art file in Illustrator that much, so what I can do is click on it, and up here in my palette, you can see there's an image trace option. So if I click image trace, Illustrator is actually going to trace out this image to the best of its ability. Now if I look to the edge here, you can see that my edge is sharp. It's not pixelated anymore. So the purpose of image trace is really to make this image a vector format of itself. So the default image trace here can be found under this preset menu drop down here. And you can change this. So you can change the tracing settings for the logo. You can pick all of these different ones, but the one I'm going to pick is this low fidelity photo option. And then when I click that, kind of give it a little bit of time to think here, it'll actually trace this thing out pretty stinking well. The reason why I would pick low fidelity photo is because it traces it in as few colors as possible. If I pick something like high fidelity photo, it's going to add more points and paths to create different tones of color, etc. You'll get a larger file size. You'll get more complex vector art file, but you'll also sacrifice the file size. If you do it at a lower fidelity photo trace, you're going to have a smaller file size. It's going to be more manageable as far as that artwork. In this case, it really doesn't make that much of a difference for this logo. They're both. It's simple enough, and it's large enough from its original JPEG to where it doesn't really make much of a difference. So I'm just going to keep it at low because I'm not getting very much quality out of it anyhow. So I'm just zooming in on this edge so you can kind of see the switch and the change. So I'm going to go over to this View Tracing Result option again here at the top, and then I'm going to click Source Image. So I'm just going to show you the before and after. Remember, here's the before, and then Tracing Result is my other image, and here's the after. This is the vector version of it. I can zoom out and just kind of see it again, before, after. So it's pretty stinking close, and that would be good. So again, I'm going to hit Command Y, and you can still see I still have the picture box, despite this being traced, because right now we're in a preview mode of this trace job here. So the only other thing I need to do is actually hit this expand button. What expand does is it takes this artwork, and it's going to actually physically outline all of the points and paths in this image. So now when I hit expand, now you can see this whole thing is traced out. And when I hit Y, you can see all of the points and paths in the logo, and this is exactly what we need for a vector art piece. So now, again, going back to when we met last, if I increase or decrease the size of this logo to infinity, it's going to be fine. So the last piece is, let me just draw a box in the back here. Oops. I'm going to make just a kind of a gray box back here behind it to see what is happening. And so if I go to, let's see, Object Arrange, I can send it to the back. All right, so this sends it all the way to the back for this back layer of this layer, if you will, okay? So anyhow, we're going to look and see this background of this image is boxed in. It's boxed into the white. Typically for a logo, we want this to be transparent. And so the easy way to do something like this would be to take our magic wand tool right here, go over the white section, click. Now it should select all the instances of white, and then we should be able to hit delete. Okay, so some good and some bad here. You can see that when I selected the white, it actually deleted the white from the inside of this D. Okay, so I'm going to go and do Command Z to undo. And so what I need to do is actually select this logo file, and I have to go to Window and Pathfinder. And what the Pathfinder window option does is gives me all these different layering options, but the one that I really want is this divide option. It's going to take all of the points and paths in the shapes, the whole shapes, and then it's going to break them out from each other like a cookie cutter. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. Can't see anything visually happening, but if I take my direct selection tool and delete that little square, now it kind of cut everything out. So this divide is a really helpful tool. It'll kind of cut out all of the, very much like a cookie cutter, whatever you have selected, it's going to separate from the other. So I'll hit the wand again and then just hit the white and then just hit delete, and then I'll be good to go. So now I can see with this little gray kind of just tool that I made out of this box, what is transparent now and what's not. So that finally I have is a totally traced out logo. Last step would be to confirm, yep, it's in CMYK. We have it up here on the left, CMYK. Let's see, anything else I need to do? I can go in my swatches, see all the swatches that are used to create this thing, and actually more. This is way too many, so I'm going to hit this option menu, and I'm going to do select all unused, and I'll just dump them. So all my unused swatches I'll just get rid of, and then maybe the yellow I'll select and then add that in. This is my process, yellow. So everything I have used here is saved in the file nicely, and I'll go up to File, and I will go into Save As. And then just on the desktop for demo purposes only, I'll have AI selected for Adobe Illustrator. I could also select EPS here if I wanted to, but Illustrator is the one you'll want to use. We can use Illustrator files in InDesign and everything else. Options here, remember we can open PDFs in the Illustrator, and you can actually create a PDF compatible format here. You can uncheck that if you wanted to lock that option out. Most designers don't really bother with doing that, so luckily they don't, because we can find a lot of PDFs online that we can drag into Illustrator and use there. So if you wanted to really lock it up, you could. Like, say for instance you were working on a logo design for a client or something, and you wanted to lock it out of Illustrator before sending them like a demo version or a sample. You could do that to kind of just put another level of security on your art there.